Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is the second part of SAML SSO video. So last time we talked about the basics of SAML and did a demo on integrating between Salesforce and Okta. And during the integration, we relied a lot on their UIs rather than going into technical details. But in order to understand the underlying mechanism and use that for integrating with other systems, we have to know SAML metadata and SAML messages, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. You're currently looking at the SAML spec. This is the best place to find the answer whenever you have any question about SAML. So to recap what we have learned last time, SP and IDP have to exchange metadata first. In SP initiated flow, SP sends SAML request and IDP sends SAML response back. And we use Okta as IDP and Salesforce as the SP. And in Okta, you can download the IDP metadata from here. And in the Salesforce side, you can download the SP metadata from here. And I already downloaded all the files. So let's take a look at the SAML metadata and the message files from the last time. So the IDP metadata only contains the IDP related information. The entity ID here is the ID of the Salesforce app in Okta, and the want auth request signed equal false means Okta doesn't require SP to sign the SAML request. SP can still sign the SAML request, but Okta doesn't care. This X509 certificate is the public certificate that SP side can use to validate the signature of the SAML response. The name ID format is the format of the username. Normally unspecified is the default, but here you can use both unspecified and the email. So last two lines are the bindings. The binding is the way you send the data. HTTP post means SP can send the SP request to your browser, and your browser sends the post request to IDP. And the HTTP redirect means SP will send the redirect request to IDP, and the SAML request will be passed as the query string parameter. And normally HTTP redirect is the default way to send the SAML request. Moving on to SP metadata, the entity ID here is the ID of the SP side, and the auth and request signed is true. So the Salesforce will sign the SAML request. The IDP can use this X509 certificate to validate the signature, but as you saw in the IDP metadata, Okta doesn't require the signature and will not validate it anyways. And the name ID format is unspecified, so we have to send this in the SAML response. Binding is the HTTP post, so that means the IDP should send SAML response to the browser, and the browser should send it to SP as the post request. And now moving on to the SAML request. So assertion consumer service URL or ACS URL is where IDP is sending the SAML response, and the destination is where we are sending the data as the request right now. And this is the ID of this request itself, and the issue instant is the time that this request has been generated, and protocol binding is the HTTP post. So we are expecting post request from IDP, and the issuer of this request is Salesforce. Moving on to the SAML response. So ID is the ID of this response. In response to, this is the ID of the request. Issue instant, this is when this response was generated. And Okta SAML app is the issuer. This is the ID of the Okta app. And this whole block is the signature block. So SP side can verify the assertion hasn't been tampered with by verifying this signature. And the status is success. And this whole block is the assertion, and this is the most important part. This is the SAML token. The issuer is the Okta SAML app. Again, this is the ID of the Okta SAML app, and the subject name ID, this right here, is the user we are trying to log in as. And this assertion is valid only between these two times, this interval. And the assertion is intended only for Salesforce. And password protected transport. This user is authenticated through the login password protected by SSL or TLS. And the rest of them are additional claims. And actually, yeah, that's it really. I went through this very briefly and very quickly. I hope that wasn't very boring. But that's it. Thanks for watching. I see you next time. Bye.